So let's just get straight into it. So some of this is a little brief repeat of yesterday. What is Umbraco? It's a web content management system. It's open source. It's 100% MIT license. You can download it for free and use it as you want in your commercial or non-commercial app. There's no cost to using Umbraco. It's a C#-based ASP.NET Web Forms app. It can run with either a SQL 2005, 2008, or a MySQL database. So that's just the brief on what Umbraco is. It was started back in 2000. Version 1 was a ASP.NET 1.1 app released in 2003. It was open source in 2004. In the past year, there's been over 250,000 downloads, and we have around 91,500 active installs worldwide at the moment. And in the last 12 months, we've done about 8 releases. So let's get started. What I'm going to talk about very briefly, foundations. The way that I want to look at this is in the stack. So this is a very high-level overview of what an Umbraco website looks like. Firstly, at the top there, we've got our document types. Now, those are used to design our data storage for our Umbraco website. Basically, we create a document type for each of the types of content that we have in our website, whether that be a text page or a news item or an image. Using those document types through the editing interface, we create our content, which essentially produces raw XML that resides in the database, and then when you publish, it gets cached to disk, and then that XML file is also cached into memory for speed reasons. And then using the templates and macros, so master pages and either .NET user controls or XSLT macros, we transform that content and we end up with our rendered website. And that's really all I really want to talk about, the foundations. We're just going to get straight into building a website with Umbraco, as opposed to sort of technically explaining it. It's much better to just to demo it. So we'll just jump into Firefox. Okay, so we've installed our Umbraco website. We have nothing set up yet. We basically have our start screen here saying that there's no nodes. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch our Umbraco website. So first thing we need to do is log in. Okay. So this is what the blank Umbraco interface looks like. You've got your content tree here on the left. You have your application chooser down the bottom here, or your sections. So the content, the media, the back office user administration, settings where we work with our document types, our templates, and our style sheets. The developer section is where we configure our macros and our data editors that are used in the inside of the editing interface. And lastly, members, if you've got membership on your website where you configure what your members look like and you set up their roles, etc. Then on the right here, we've got the dashboard, which is the area where you edit your content for your Umbraco website, or you display dashboard controls. And those are all configurable. So to get started, we first of all need to create some document types. And so we jump into the settings section, and what we have here is the settings tree. At the bottom of the settings tree, we have the document types folder. And what we want to do is we basically want to right-click on the document types folder and click create. This will allow us to create our document types. So all websites have a home node, and it's probably a good place to start when you're talking about the hierarchy of our website. So just for architecture reasons, when you start out your Umbraco website, it's a really good idea to actually map out all of your document types and your content types that you're going to have, so that when you come to create these document types, you're not having to change them in the future. Because if you use doc type inheritance, which I'll show you a bit later on, you can run into some issues if your architecture hasn't been thought out properly at the beginning. So I'm just going to create a home document type. And I've left the create template ticked, and what that's done is in the templates folder here, it has also created us a home template or a home master page that is directly associated with our home document type. And that's just the default template for it. So in the document type editor, what we have is we have a series of tabs. The info tab is basically just metadata that describes what that document type is. The structure tab defines what kind of children this document type can have, so what kind of child content can exist underneath this node in the tree. the generic properties, which is basically where we create our properties for our document type, what describes our document type. We can have as many as we want. It's an infinite number. And then tabs are for organizing those properties so that it makes it easier for our editors to work with our document type. So I usually start with the tabs, and I just map out what I want. So I'm just going to create a content tab. Okay, and then I'm going to jump into the generic properties, and I'm actually going to just create a couple properties for our site. So first thing I'm going to create is like the body copy for our homepage. And I'm going to use the convention body text. It automatically created me the alias of body copy, which is basically what we could use in code. But if we use body text, a lot of package developers who build stuff for Umbraco always describe the main block of copy on our website as body text. So it's good to sort of just stick with that convention. And then we can pick what type of content editor it's going to require. And so in this case, we're going to choose a rich text editor, which in Umbraco is just a tiny MCE. And we're going to add that to our content tab. We've got some other options down here for validation. We can select whether or not it's mandatory, and then we can put in some regular expression style validation. I'm just going to add one other tab on here, which is called site info. I'm going to add a couple properties to that one as well. Okay. So I'm just going to call this one site name and see how it's automatically created the alias for me. I'm going to make that a text string, add it to my site info tab. And just do the same thing for site description. And we'll just make that a multi-line text box. So basically, you just build up your document types how you need them. And once we've got our home document type, I'm just going to create one other one, which is just a simple text page document type. And I'll also keep this matching template ticked. Just saves us a bit of work. You could go and manually create these things and associate them, but if you use the checkbox, it will just set it up for us and cut down on time. Next thing we want to do is we just are going to create a tab on here, content, and I'm just going to add one property to that, and then we're going to actually start creating some content in our website. Okay, so we'll just call that body copy as well. Again, using that convention body text. And we'll make that a rich text editor. Okay. One last thing that we need to do is we need to actually tell the home node that it's allowed to have text pages underneath it. So if we just click back onto the home node and come to the structure tab, we can select that it's allowed the child node types of text page. Okay. So we're just going to jump to the content section. We can actually now start creating content in our website. So I'm going to start by creating our homepage. And we can just throw in some simple text into here. I'm just going to paste it to save time. And we are going to, whoops, I've put the site description on another tab. But if we just put in here, TN's Umbraco demo site, and where did I put the description? Did I put it on I put it on the content tab. And I'll also just dump some, I don't know what that is. HP. I don't even have an HP. It's a Mac. That's interesting. Okay, so we just put in our site description. It's probably a little bit much text, actually. Let's just cut that down. Okay. Just save and publish that. Okay, now if we actually go and view that, that page, we're not going to see a lot because we haven't done anything with our templates. We've just got blank templates at the moment, or blank master pages. So just quickly, I'm just going to create a couple extra text pages. One for About Us. I'm not going to even put any content on these. And I'll create another one for, say, documentation. Okay. And just quickly publish those, I'll just right-click and I'll go to Publish, and I'll tell it to publish my unpublished children. Okay. So basically, we've just built a very simple set of pages. Now, next thing we need to do is we need to create some templates to mark this up and actually start displaying some content. So we'll come back to the settings section. I'll just refresh the templates now here. And you'll see that we've got two templates, the home and the text page. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one extra template, which is like the site master. Okay. And you can see here that it's just a standard master page file with a master page declaration. We have a standard content area. And just say now you don't actually have to edit these in Umbraco. You can use Visual Studio to modify all of your templates if you want to. So what I'm going to do is in this space here, I start my HTML. So you can see that it actually inherits from a master page itself, which is the Umbraco master page's default master page. Now that's got some logic that goes on in the background that controls like routing and some other extra things that it needs to display content. So don't go and delete that. Keep it the way it is. We'll start creating our HTML in here, but to save time again, I'm just going to paste this in because otherwise we'll be here all day. Okay, so we end up with our master page that our HTML developer's given us, and he's given us some cues to put some of our page properties in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start replacing some of these things with some of our content from our site. So here in the title of our page, I want to actually include the page name. So I'm going to delete that out. I'm going to click the Insert Umbraco Page field. And then from this drop-down, I get a list of all the available properties that are in my site. Because templates can be used against any document type in the system, it lists out all the properties on every document type in this drop-down. So I'm going to select the page name. And I'm going to insert that. And what it's done is it's inserted this Umbraco item here. So if I just show you that, I can zoom that. So you can see the Umbraco item with the field page name with run at server. It's just the server control. And the next thing we want to do is the site name. Now, site name existed on our home page only, but not on our text pages. But Umbraco gives you the ability to create what are called recursive fields. So if I insert the recursive field for site name and tick recursive, what it does is it will read up through my tree, no matter where I am in the site, it will read back to the root of the site until it finds that property, and then it will display it for me on this page as if it was part of this document. So I'm just going to insert that, and you can see there that it's added this recursive equals true property to our user control. So I'm just going to replace these other values down here also for site name and site description. So site name and site description. Site description. Okay. And then finally, what we want to do to this master page is we want to tell all of the child master pages where they're going to insert their content. So it's just simple master page stuff. So we just go insert content area placeholder, and we can name that, and I'm just going to call this body and insert it. And so it just inserts a standard ASP content placeholder, and we'll save that. Now what we want to do is we want to go and tell our home template and our text page template to inherit from that site master. So again, I've got this in my clipboard. I'm just going to paste our home master, and I'm going to tell it that its master page file is site. It just wires up that hierarchy for us. If I had put something else in here, so I just change that to something else and then flick it back, you'll see that it actually updates the declaration for us. So we'll save that. And I need to do the same thing to text page also. So Generally, you can get your HTML developers to do this, or you can do it yourself. What I found in the past is you can decouple parts of the CMS and delegate it, so you get all your HTML guys building these templates, and your developers focus on the actual development work. It's quite cool. So text page master, we'll set that to site also, and we'll save that. Okay. So now when the other thing we want to do is we also want to include a style sheet. So I can create a new style sheet, and because the templates that I'm using are part of the Runway package you can install when you're installing Umbraco, I'm just going to call it Runway because that's what the reference is in the master page. I'm just going to insert our CSS. Now again, this is just a physical file on the disk. Your HTML guys or your CSS developers can actually work directly with this file, and they don't have to log into the interface. It just reads that directory and picks it up. Okay, so we've got that. If I refresh our templates, you'll see that it also shows us our hierarchy of content, of templates, sorry. And if we come back to our homepage and refresh, we should now have a pretty website with our lorem ipsum text. Okay, so now this brings us into the next stage. We want some navigation to actually get around our website. So we're going to start by creating an XSLT macro to do our navigation. So to do that, we want to jump into our developers section of our site, and we have the XSLT files folder. Now you can write your macros as either .NET user controls, Python files, Ruby files. You can even use LOL code in there if you really want, if you set it up correctly. Basically, we've included the CLR in there, so it can use all these extra languages. So we're just going to create an XSLT file, and I'm going to call this one top navigation. And I'm going to use one of the built-in templates. Now, Umbraco ships with this list of built-in templates. It gives you a kickstart to getting into Umbraco and also to learning how Umbraco works with XSLT. But I'm going to use this list subpages by level template, and I'm going to leave this create macro box ticked. It will just do all the wire up for us, so we don't have to go and manually configure it. Okay, so what this has done is it's created us an XSLT file with all of the namespaces all brought in for us, because there's some. We wire up automatically. We wire up any .NET XSLT extensions, etc., that you've got installed in your system and have configured. So for instance, down here we have the Umbraco library XSLT extension, which gives us access to things like nice URL, which will go and actually retrieve the properly formatted nice URL that's represented based on our tree. So that's all we need to do to create our navigation. I haven't had to do anything else except this. I need to tell it to look for level 1. Every node in Umbraco has a level property on it that specifies how many steps down the tree it is. So if we're looking for level 1 nodes, it's going to give us all of our first level nodes. So we're just going to save that. And to put our, sorry, I'll just jump back here. You see here that it's created our macro, and it's wired it up for us, and it's using the XSLT file. So you've got to you can change which XSLT file a macro is using whenever you want. There's some other options in here, namely caching. So you can configure your caching for your .NET user controls, your XSLT files for long-running tasks, etc. So I'm going to jump back to our settings, and I'm going to throw our new macro into our template, and that needs to sit here. And I'm just going to use the Insert Macro button. We get a drop-down of the available macros in our system. So at the moment, we've only got top navigation. Okay. And that's all we need to do. So we've got our macro in there. It's put in the Umbraco macro user control, and it's told it to use the alias of top navigation, which is the macro to pull in. So if we come back to our site, hit refresh, we now have a navigation that we can scan through our website for. I didn't put recursive on the site name. That's why it's not showing out. Let's just change that site name. Oops. Now, there are some shortcut keys in Umbraco as well, so if you're working in any of these editors, if you hit Control-S, it will save them. So we just come back out here and our site name should be on the site. Okay, now we've got a very basic website. Now you could build a website that was only those sort of things, just some basic doc types, a little bit of XSLT to navigate around it. But we've got a boss who wants to say some stuff, and so he wants a news section where he can write news and broadcast. So we're going to create some extra document types so he can do that. So first thing we want to do is we're going to create a news item. And I'm going to do some inheritance here. I'm going to say that news item is very similar to text page, so I don't want to have to recreate all of the properties that exist on a text page. I just want to create the extended properties. So I'm going to select text page as the master document type. I'm going to leave the create matching template box ticked again. And what this has done is you can see in the tree here, there's a little visual cue to tell us that there is another document type inheriting from text page. And if we come to the generic properties tab, it's telling us that all of that this document type is going to inherit all the properties of text page. So I'm going to create one extra tab on here called summary. And I'm going to throw a multi-line text box on that to display our summary for our news item, or our abstract for our news item. So we'll just call that summary. And we are going to make that a multi-line text box. Okay. I'm also going to create another document type called news item list. Basically, this is a container document type that is allowed to have news items underneath it. So I'm not going to inherit from anything. I'm going to create a matching template. I'm going to tell it that it's allowed news items. I'm not going to add any properties to it because I don't actually need it to have any properties. Okay. And I'm going to come to the home node and I'm going to tell it that it can have a news item list. So you can see here we're building up the structure of the site and what's allowed where, etc. So if I refresh the templates, we've got 2 new templates. I'm just going to paste in some markup for these. So for the news item, so news item master page HTML. And what we have in this news item master page is we have a page name. We've got the update date, which is basically the publish date, and we're telling it to format it as a date. We've got some formatting options, so I might just recreate that one so you can see how it's done. If we go insert, we select update date from our list, and we have some formatting options down the bottom here. So format as date. So these are just simple options that we can give to our people who are building the templates through the interface. Okay, I'm just going to save that. Oh, and I need to tell it that it's using site as its master template. And I'm just going to insert the markup for our news item list. And I've got a placeholder here for where we're going to put our news item list macro. So I'm just going to set that to site and save that. Okay. So let's reload that. So now we've got those extra templates. Now if I come back to the content section, I'm just going to build up a very simple news section. So we'll just say news, and you can see here that we've now got the option to pick a news item list as well as text page. And we are going to just save and publish that, and we're going to create a couple news items. So we can say news from tens. And we've only got the option of creating news items. So we've got a very strongly typed hierarchy as to what we can actually create where. Okay. And we'll just paste in some very basic copy. I'm also going to put in some summary, so news from tens, Umbraco session. We're just going to publish that. Okay. Now, if we come back out to our site, and refresh, we have our new section, but we've got no way of browsing it. So next we're going to create a macro, but this time we're going to jump into Visual Studio. Well, I mean, we could build this simple news list thing as an XSLT file, but I think it's probably time to sort of just show you how to do some stuff with the actual APIs. And then after that, I'm going to show you some of the new features that we've also put into Umbraco recently that make creating lists like this easy through .NET. So I have a simple Visual Studio solution set up here. Now, if I just unhide, let's just remove these things for the moment. If I show all the hidden objects, you see that it's just a standard Umbraco install. This is what the directory looks like. You can see our top navigation XSLT file that we created, and we've also got our master pages that we created. Now what we're going to do is, the reason why I'm working this way, this is really good when you're building a simple website. I wouldn't suggest you do this if you're going to be using your library of code over and over again. You'd build your Visual Studio solution slightly differently. If you want to know about the different options for building the Visual Studio solution, just come see me afterwards. But this is the way that I like to work with it if you're just building like one-off sites. So what we're going to do for our news item list is we're going to come into our user controls folder, and I've just got the skeleton file for a simple news item, news list here. So it's just got a repeater in the front. I'm just going to kill that. Simple repeater in the front. It's just an unordered list of news items, and it's got some stuff going on. And you can see here that we've started using some of the Umbraco helper methods that are in the Umbraco library namespace, namely nice URL. It's the same one that's used for the XSLT extensions. And we're just going to evaluate out some of our properties that we're just going to fetch in a minute. So if we come to the code behind, we have a blank code behind file. I've brought in one namespace, which is umbraco.presentation.nodefactory. Now, nodefactory is a class that allows us to work with the published XML file, and it's incredibly quick. If we work with, and it's only for display. You cannot input stuff back. You can't put stuff back into the database through the node factory. It's only for retrieval. So first thing I'm going to do for our news list is I'm going to first of all create a node, which represents the current page. So to do that, from the node factory, we're going to use the node object, and we are going to grab the current node. Now, get current, what it does is it fetches the node that represents the page that we're looking at. Then I'm going to create a list of children, so I'm going to call this news list. And, news list. And I am going to, from that node, I'm just going to use a little bit of a link query. Just go from node x in node.children, in node.children. We want to select x, okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'll just wrap this up, and I'm going to order by descending, and I'm just going to grab the node and grab x dot update date. So we're just going to order it descending based on the date, and then I'm going to bind it to our news list. So news list repeater dot data source equals news list and news list repeater dot data bind. So just standard everyday .NET, and we'll just build that. Okay. Now, if we jump back into our site, we now can bring this macro in. So you can see that was pretty simple, just using the APIs to grab that content. So we just come back to our site. I'm going to jump into the developers section, and I'm going to create a new macro, and I'm going to call that news list. Or let's call that list news items, because I like that name better. And all I have to do is from this .NET user control section, just select our .NET user control. So I'm going to use this newslist.ascx file, and we can hit save. Now what you get is this browse properties. Now if your user control has any public properties, you can wire them up to Umbraco, so you can pass details back and forth out of Umbraco through the macro itself. There are some advantages to bringing your user control into Umbraco through a macro as opposed to just dumping the user control directly on the template. You can do that, but Umbraco gives you some caching control based on what the content is in the XML file and things. Caching directives in your user controls don't work the same way in Umbraco as they do in a normal ASP.NET Web app. So we're just going to save that, jump back to our settings section, and come to our news item list. We're just going to throw that macro down on our page. So we've got two macros now, so we want list news items. And if we save that, what we can do now is if we come back to our news list, we only have one. Oh, we've got an error. There we go. Ah, okay. I didn't do what I thought I should have done. Here we go. Let's turn this into a set of anonymous types, because that's what I did when I did this. So select new ID equals x dot ID node name equals x dot name summary equals x dot get property. Now this is using the node factory to get a property out of the system, so we're just going to grab the summary key. And lastly, we're going to get the create date. Okay, just close that off and close that off also. It should update. What about X? No, sorry, not create date, update date. You think you're going well until you make a mistake. Now, does that... Okay, that's what we wanted. Let's rebuild that. Come back here, and we should have a news list. No. I had create date. I did have create date on it. Stupid. Just sorry about that. This is debugging in front of the crowd. Just go back here and that. Okay. Just proves we're all human. Okay, so we've got our news item, and it's linking through to our news page, which has our date and our content. So it wasn't particularly hard. But I'm going to show you another way of doing it, which is using Link to Umbraco, which is a new feature that was released in the latest version of Umbraco. It basically gives us our Umbraco objects back as objects with their properties as properties, rather than using magic strings, which get property users. So if we just jump back to our Visual Studio solution, I'm going to go into the code behind of this, and I'm just going to remove these fields here. Sorry, I missed something in the back office here. First thing we need to do is we actually need to export our document types for .NET, which basically creates a class representation of all of our document types. So to do that, we go to the document types, we right-click on document types and say export for .NET. What this does, brings up this dialog. We have two options. One is for plain old CLR objects with abstractions. That's good because you can then start mocking your objects and you can write tests against them. But we're just going to go for the plain old CLR objects. So we're going to leave out the abstractions. Going to name our data context. So tens is what I'm going to call mine, and I'm just going to call this TENS Umbraco demo as the namespace, because that's what my Visual Studio Solution namespace is. And once that's created, it creates a file on the disk with the extension text. It's hidden in the app data folder, so it's not exposed. No one can download it. And so we're just going to right-click on this and save the link. And we're going to rename its extension to CS. So I'm just going to call it tens.cs. And I'm putting this in the link. I've created a folder in my Visual Studio Solution just called link for the sake of the demo. Once that's done, we jump back into Visual Studio. Now, if I just update this, just include that file in our solution. You see here that it's a class file. Basically, you can start recognizing some of the objects in here. So you've got body text and you've got your site description. One thing to remember with Link to Umbraco is anytime you modify your document types, you've got to regenerate this class file. It can be, you can build partial classes against it. So say you wanted to extend it, you can create partials and not destroy your old code. So once we've done that, we're going to come back to our news list, and we're going to use that data context to grab our news items. So var, we're just going to create a new data context. And we are going to var up our news list again, and we're just going to go from ctx.newsItems. So it's to grab all the news items. We want to select X as a new anonymous type. And we're going to create all of those properties. Now, I've already done this so that we don't have to wait around, so I've got a code snippet for it. That's a comment. X, isn't it? My snippets. And we want to throw in, wrong one. And we're going to throw in our news properties. But these are the same ones as we had before, but I'll just show you that our types now have different properties. So we can just go x.nodename, which is the actual property out of Umbraco. And our summary, we can just, instead of going x.getProperty summary, we can just go x.summary, because our objects are now proper objects. And we're just going to make this update date. And we just go x.update date. Okay. And then we can just go order by descending, and we can say x.update date. That's it. So, different way of approaching the same problem, just to get you familiar with it. And we'll just rebuild that. Jump back to our site just to prove that it still works. Hopefully. Okay, so it's the same thing but using the link objects instead. It's always, waiting for that thing to happen. Okay, so we've just built our news list. And now what I want to show you is the document, the document class of Umbraco, which is the ability to actually create documents using the API. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create a really simple version of like Facebook-like, but just using the APIs to increment a value on our document type. So we're just going to jump into the back office, and I'm going to add an extra property to our news item. Okay. And we'll just call that like. And we'll make that a numeric field. Throw it on our generic properties, it's fine. Okay. Now, to use this property, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another user control. I have a skeleton file set up here for it. It's called News Like, and it's just a button with a on-click event. And what we're doing is that on startup, we're just telling it to insert what the value of like is. Now, because we select a numeric in the back office, it's automatically going to be 0 because it's an integer. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to insert this code for the sake of time. Not from there, I'm not. Go away, arrow peak. Like button code. Okay. So what this is doing is, first of all, let's just go here, live zoom. Okay. So first thing we've got is we are, first of all, creating our document object. So in Umbraco, using the Umbraco.businessLogic, CMS.businessLogic, we can get to the document class. And then we're just going to pull in the ID of our current page that we're looking at. And this time we're going to grab it through umbraco.current.pageID, and that's just in our current context. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm setting up my like variable, and here what I have is I'm pulling it in, figuring out whether or not it has a value already, and then just incrementing that property by 1, otherwise setting it as 1. And then here is where the setting actually happens. So doc.getProperty like .value equals likes. And that's as simple as it is. It's basically it then updates the database with that value. The next thing we have to do is we then have to publish our document again, and you have to pass in a user to publish that document. So I'm using 0, which is the administrator. And then lastly, I'm refreshing the Umbraco XML cache that's sitting on disk and the one that's in memory. And then last but not least, we update the text value of our button. So it's just Control 4. So I'm going to just build that. Come back into Umbraco, come to the developers section, and I'm going to create a new macro. Just wait for the DLL cache to refresh. And we'll call this news likes. And we select our Umbraco user control from here, which is news likes. Now, our news likes had a public property on it, which was the number of likes that the object already has. So if I just jump back and go to the top, you'll see here that there's a public property of like count. Using this Browse Properties button, it automatically picks up what they are. It also tells us what the type is, and it will map them correctly. So when an editor is inserting it in the template, it knows that what it's passing around is an integer. So it does our type conversion for us. So I'm just going to save that. If I just exit off that and go to news likes again and go to the parameters, it set up that parameter for us and mapped it to a number. Now how that's used is when we are sitting on our template, we're going to add that macro to our news item template. And we're just going to throw it in underneath our body text here. So insert that macro. If we grab our news likes control and insert it, it pops up with this extra set of parameters that it's expecting for that control. Now we could have things in here like content pickers, so we can go and pick content from elsewhere on the site if we're displaying a list of content in different places. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to set this to be a page property. So Umbraco has a syntax for doing that. So we just use square brackets, put in a hash, and then put in the value for likes, or like was the property. So the hash just specifies that it's a page property. We can also use cookie properties, cookie variables, and we can also use query string variables just by changing that to either an @ for query string or a % for from cookie. So I'm just going to leave it as a hash. Or I could type a number in here directly and just leave out the square brackets entirely. So here we go. Here's our likes with the property like count set to the page property of like. So when I save that, come back to our news item again. And what we have down the bottom here is a button that basically increments every time someone clicks it. And that property then maps back to our content in our document. So our like count is updating in the back office. Okay. That is basically the code portion of the presentation. The next part is I want to talk about packages. Now, often when you're building an Umbraco website, you don't necessarily want to rebuild everything. You don't want to have to reinvent the wheel all the time. Other people have already done it. And what they do is they release their code as packages. Now, packages are just simple blocks of functionality that you can install into your Umbraco site. To use those, we go to the developers section. And you'll see here we've got the packages folder. If I open that out, you have some options. The first item in the list is the Umbraco package repository. Now, that's actually wired up to the website our.umbraco.org, which is the community-based website. And what that gives us is we have these different categories of packages that we can choose from. So we've got things like website utilities. Now, anything that gets listed in this package repository is the top-rated packages from a list of over 300. So these are the ones that people in the community have voted up to have more than what they call 15 karma points. So we have things like the desktop media uploader is really, really awesome, and it's been released recently. Basically, it gives you a Air app that you can just drag and drop media files off your desktop into, and it will upload them automatically to your website for you. We have things like Twitter for Umbraco. So whenever you've got someone who says, oh, we've got to have our Twitter feed on our website, you just install the Twitter package, modify the XSLT file that it uses to display the content, and away you go. So you can mark it up however you want. But what we're going to do is we're going to install XSLT Search, which is probably one of the most popular packages in the Umbraco community, because basically it enables you to put search in your website incredibly quickly without a lot of hassle. So we're going to install this out of the repository. So we just come to this page and hit download and install. And we are going to accept the license and click install. It's going to give us some warnings. So at the moment it's actually downloading the package into our app data folder in a temporary folder. And it's installed. And what that's done is it's dumped an XSLT file in, which is the actual search itself. It's quite a crazy piece of XSLT, and you'd never want to write this yourself. Now, XSLT search is capable up to around 20 to 30,000 nodes, depending on what kind of system you're putting it on. But it's basically a really simple, fast content search. It's also installed a document type for us, XSLT search, and it's also dumped the template in for us. Now, because the XSLT search is its template is based around the runway document types. Runway templates, it's going to be easy for us to integrate this. So all I need to do is, first of all, change my master to site, and I'm just going to change the placeholder to body and hit save on the net. Now, there's all sorts of settings for this macro. So I'm just going to cut that for a second, and we'll reinsert it. So this is the XSLT search macro. So we get all these properties that are being passed into the macro for use. So we have things like selecting which fields you actually want to search on. You may not want to search on every property and every template. Which document types you want to use. Which part of the content does the summary come from? Is the summary from the beginning of the content or contextual? Those sort of things. So I'm not going to actually redo that. I'll just go back here and repaste that and just change that to body. And hit save. The other thing it's done as well is we need to tell the home node that it can have the XSLT search page underneath it. So we just come into structure, select XSLT search, save that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to move the search into our page. We'd actually have to type in /search to get to the search page, as opposed to it just being a link on our navigation. So I'm just going to move this. So right click on search and hit move. And I'm going to throw this into the home tree. Okay. And republish that. So what we end up with is a, let's just come back here, we've got our search item in our nav, and we've got our search box. Now, obviously you can modify the markup for all of this. This is just XSLT that's displaying all of this, and the template has its markup for the search boxes, etc. So I can just put in here, I'm pretty sure I've got lorem somewhere in our site, and it basically returns me matching results. Now you can put ordinals in here, and you can display the scores for the content, etc. And you can tell it where to put these search boxes and things. But what you've done there is we've basically put a search engine into a very simple website with very little effort. Okay. So let's just jump back to packages again, and I'll just talk through some of the popular ones. We have some other options as well. We can install local packages. So you actually have the options to actually package up your own stuff. So say you're reusing a lot of content, a lot of functionality all the time, you can say, well, let's just create a package so that when we start a new site, we can just install these packages. So just looking at the package repository though, so we've got website utilities, Umbraco Pro, which basically has the contour form building package in it. There's some other Umbraco Pro products which are being released as individual products at the moment. One of them is Courier, which is basically for migrating content between staging and live environments. We have starter kits. The Creative Website Starter Kit is actually a really good place to start if you want to get familiar with Umbraco. Developer tools. These are things that you use to extend Umbraco, like the 301 URL tracker. You can basically get it to track all of your 404s, and it can make suggestions as to what that content should hook up to, or so that you can then say it's moved permanently to this new location, or it's permanently gone. Other things as well, like the config tree. And log viewers, because Umbraco has a log that it records in the database, and so you can put management in there. The FAM icon pack is just basically a massive number of icons. We often install this to start with because it means that we can go through and modify what our icons look like in our tree to give our editors visual cues as to what they're working with. Okay. And collaboration, blog for Umbraco. I personally probably go and use a WordPress blog over the top of blog for Umbraco if you're going to use Umbraco purely as a blog, but it's good if you've just got to add blogging into an existing site. It has like spam filtering, etc. in it. uComment is just the comment component out of blog for Umbraco on its own, so you can just put commenting onto any content. And then back office extensions. The best one at the moment, in my opinion, is uComponents, which basically they've taken all of the jQuery UI, a lot of jQuery UI controls, and wrapped them up for use in Umbraco. And it's really a really fantastic package. It's a single DLL deploy, and it has all of the resources in it, so all of its visual layouts, etc. So I really recommend you have a look at that. You've got locator packages, so for putting Google Maps and Bing Maps and things into the site. Okay, but that's packages. So don't reinvent the wheel. It's a really good place to start. If you're building a new site, look at packages. Make sure that there's, you're not necessarily having to rebuild some new functionality that already exists. Okay, that's the end of that sort of demo segment. I'm just going to jump back into the slide deck for the last 5 minutes. Okay, so getting help. Okay, it's a steep learning curve to start with, but it's a very short learning curve. It's not going to take you very long to get familiar with Umbraco and actually start building content, but it's important that you know where to go to find help. So some of the best places are Umbraco TV, which is basically it's a paid service, but it's cheap, 19 euros for 3 months, so it's not particularly expensive. And basically they walk through some very complex tasks, such as building custom sections and custom trees for the back office, so you can integrate your third-party apps, and then down to the basics as well. Our.Umbraco is the community website. It's really the place to go if you've got a question or you've got a problem. Post it on the forum, you usually get an answer. And when it's sort of before 11 a.m. and after 4 p.m., you pretty much will get an answer within an hour. It's really quick. And Twitter, Umbraco, the hash Umbraco tag is very popular. If you've got a problem, you post it in the forum, you tweet it, someone will go and look at it. There's a lot of people following that tag. And then the official training and certification courses. Okay. Getting involved, I do suggest you do get involved in the Umbraco project in some way. So one of the ways is through the our.umbraco site. So we have a very active community. I went over this yesterday, just some of the stats there on the screen. And just remember that the core product on its own is nothing without the community. The community is what makes it what it is through bug testing, packages that they've built. That is what makes Umbraco really strong. You can contribute in many ways. You don't necessarily have to be part of the core team to contribute. You can contribute via submitting patches to Coplex. You can contribute through releasing packages and replying to forum posts, creating documentation in the wiki. But there is an incentive to do that. You do get rewarded, and it gets quite competitive. It's like the points on Stack Overflow. You have what we call karma points. You also have the options to collaborate with other developers to build your packages, so you can open your package up for collaboration. So through the karma points, we pick our MVPs, which are our most valuable people. Now, some of these guys are just HTML developers. They're not developers as such. They're people who are passionate about the product, and they contribute through posting on forums and asking questions. And every year they fly the top 5 to Denmark for the annual conference. So there is a very competitive aspect to the karma points, especially when there's this incentive. And just that last little funny stat, the top MVP from last year contributed 5% of all the forum posts. So he was pretty active in the forums. And we also have the Karma Fund, which basically is a new thing that we released at the last conference. It's an incentive to share and contribute packages. It's 10,000 euros all up, and from the top 5 packages, we distribute some cash as a sort of reward for producing something that's cool and is useful to the community. And that's based on community voting. The actual Umbraco HQ doesn't dictate the vote at all, which is really cool. And then lastly, we have certification program, so becoming an Umbraco certified professional. It's probably bigger in Australia than it is here. I'm probably over there every 3 months training up developers. But we've got a couple certified development houses in New Zealand, and it's becoming bigger. And so we have 2 courses. There's a level 1 course, which basically is a foundational course, basically teaches you the foundations of Umbraco, gets you really familiar with the back office and building a website using purely Umbraco. So a lot of XSLT, working with packages. It's a 2-day intense course based around kind of what I showed you here, but taking it a lot further, and we talk about the sort of the technical aspect behind how Umbraco does things. And the level 2 is really for .NET developers, people who have to extend the package, add functionality to the core, integrating third-party packages, etc. So that's a really excellent course if you've got to do some complex work and you've got the requirement to sort of unify a couple apps and make them all look like Umbraco. So the future, where is Umbraco going? Now, we already have an MVC version in development. We have a full-time. We have an architect working on it. He's half a week. He's working for Umbraco, and basically we have a core team of sort of 15 guys who are working alongside him, who are developing up this MVC app. Now, it's a ground-up rebuild. We've got a lot of help from Microsoft in terms of how this has been developed, in terms of being exposed to the latest and greatest features of MVC, so MVC 3 features and the .NET 4 framework and whatever comes next, the .NET 5 framework when that's released. It'll be it's fully testable and fully tested from the start. So unlike the current app, which has been sort of an organically growing thing, this is going to be a lot more grounded in the latest sort of trends in terms of unit testing. And we're working around a data provider model, which basically means that we want to decouple the UI from where the data is coming from. So basically it means that if you can build a data provider For Umbraco, you can, for another app, so say WordPress, you can plug it into Umbraco as long as you can write the provider for it. And that's sort of where it's at the moment. We have some sort of technology sort of demos that we built internally for demoing that, and it's working quite well, so it's cool. And that brings us to the end of my deck. We have some stuff to give away, namely Umbraco TV subscriptions. So I've got enough for everybody in the room, which is awesome. And I also have some Contour licenses as well. Now Contour is the form builder. It's worth €99, I think it is, and the TV subscription is a 12-month subscription from memory. But so if you want one of those, just come and see me. And I also have some T-shirts. I think I've got 8 of those left. So if anybody wants a T-shirt, they're all large. So if you want a T-shirt, just come and ask me a question, and I'll give you a T-shirt. And just everybody else, yeah, just come and get a subscription. Cool. Thank you.